I'm trying to get to 1 million subscribers, so if you could subscribe to me, I'd be very happy. Thank you. This case takes place in the USA in the year 2015. Meet Ashlee Ann, born on the 6th of March 1998. The exact state and city of her birth are not publicly known. However, her mother was called Jennifer, who became pregnant at the age of 23. Life for the young mother and baby Ashlee could hardly be described as a good start. Not long after she was born, Jennifer split from Ashlee's biological father. Her biological father remains largely obscure in most accounts, but what is known is that his violent behaviour drove the split, and from that day, Ashlee has remained estranged from him. In 2007, when Ashlee was around 9, Ashlee's mother Jennifer started a relationship with an awful man. Her mother's boyfriend would throw things at her, stub cigarettes out on her skin, and much worse. Before she reached the age of 10, her stepfather forced himself upon her. Ashlee would later tell reporters in an interview that her mother's ex-partner took everything from her. But the horrors, they didn't stop there. The same man would attack her mother. He was verbally and physically violent, and he wasn't afraid of hurting her mother in front of her. This man, who is still unnamed, was terrorizing the family. Ashlee was particularly alone in these situations, as her mother did very little to protect her. And according to Ashlee, her mother would send this man into her bedroom at night to tuck her into bed. This is when he touched her in ways that are utterly vile. Throughout this horrifying period in her life, Ashlee claims that her mother knew exactly what was happening to her, and yet she did nothing. These horrors lasted for 2 years until her mother finally left this man. But unfortunately, Ashlee's mother had a terrible taste in men. When Ashlee was a teenager, Jennifer married a man by the name of Thomas Ayers, who brought with him 3 daughters from a previous relationship. The family of 6 lived in a small timber-framed house in a rural area in Wisconsin. Thomas had a well-documented history of violence and erratic behavior, as evidenced by several encounters with law enforcement, which included assault, beating up his pregnant wife, kidnapping, along with other horrifying crimes. According to a police report, a 13-year-old boy who was apparently friends with Thomas and his ex-wife would frequently spend time in his old trailer. On these occasions, Thomas and his ex-wife would show this young boy how to do things to pleasure women. Thomas compared it to a father teaching his son how to throw a baseball. According to the documents, Thomas had no direct contact with the boy, but he would perform acts on his ex-wife in front of him. Following this, Thomas was charged with illegal possession of a firearm and domestic violence. However, according to Thomas's sister Sandy, she described him as a man who worked hard to turn his life around, as in 2007 he got a job as a construction worker, and according to his closest family, he had changed his ways. They described him as a good man who would do anything for you if he loved you. But this couldn't be further from the truth. According to reports made by his daughters and Ashlee, he did not become a better man. Ashlee stated that Thomas would sometimes kill baby animals in front of her and her step-siblings. He even once choked the family dog, threw it against a wall, shot it, and then fed it to a bear. Thomas was still a deeply aggressive and violent man. He was a man who needed to rule over his apparent loved ones, and he ruled with an iron fist. All 5 females of the house were often subjected to verbal attacks on a nearly daily basis. If Thomas ever felt disrespected by Jennifer, he would beat her, and his own 3 daughters were occasionally subjected to physical attacks. On at least one occasion, Ashlee's younger sister was strangled to the point where she started turning blue. One way that Ashlee dealt with her previous traumas and her ongoing domestic hell was to lean into an alternative style, embracing dark, dramatic art and macabre aesthetics. She named herself Vampire Chick and made her own website where she posted fictional short stories about vampires and serial killers. She also posted sinister blog entries along with haunting poetry with titles like Murder Madness, where she described herself as a psychopath in the dark. In this poem, she wrote chilling lines such as, "I can hear nothing but their screaming souls." She also drew pictures of dark scenes, monsters, and gruesome details. In one post she wrote, "They say one of us to blame. You're holding that knife covered in blood. I'm laughing off the pain, wondering which one of us is guilty if we're both totally insane." Her friends and her family were not aware of this outlet and its graphic nature. She was described as a typical normal girl, slightly shy, and from a troubled household. Ashlee's only escape was school. But even then, escaping to school wasn't enough. She wanted relief from her stepfather permanently. She became concerned that Thomas was going to kill her mother soon, and when that happened, she didn't want to be around. In late February of 2020, Ashlee planned to escape. At the time, she was also dating a man called Ryan Daniel Sisko. He was 22 years old, and he was going to join in on her escape. On the morning of her 17th birthday, on the 6th of March 2015, Ashlee had to witness another attack against her mother. On this occasion, Ashlee described the noises her mother made like she was screaming for her life. Right away, she grabbed her phone and began messaging her boyfriend Ryan. She began telling him how she wanted to escape and that she hated both her mother and Thomas. She was very graphic and said that she wanted to kill him and blow his brains out. She described how she would grab one of his illegally possessed guns from his arsenal of weapons and sniper rifles and blow his effing brains out. The next day, on the 7th of March 2015, an argument broke out between Ashlee and Thomas. During this altercation, Thomas had examined Ashlee's Facebook account and had discovered that she was in a relationship with Ryan. Thomas had discovered that he was an adult and he flew off the handle. In a fit of rage, he demanded that Jennifer lock her in her room immediately. She was to be homeschooled, forbidden from getting a job, and essentially imprisoned until she fell in line. Jennifer, however, had a different idea. She told her daughter to leave. If Ashlee wanted to run away, then she should just go. Ashlee packed up her bags and began walking to her friend's house, a guy called Jonathan. But this was against Thomas's orders. Thomas followed Ashlee in his truck as she walked over to Jonathan's house. He eventually caught up to her and directed her into the truck. As Thomas took her home, he said that it was in her best interest to stay at home. As Ashlee sat in the passenger seat with Thomas, she was allegedly in a state of despair. She felt as if she was being terrorized by a tyrannical man. All of her freedoms were removed and she had no escape. When they got back to the house, she made her way to her bedroom. But as she did this, she made a detour past Thomas's gun collection and grabbed one of his many loaded shotguns. Ashlee took the weapon into her room. For a moment, she contemplated using it on herself. She sat on her bed, wondering if this was the right thing to do. Ashlee then realized that she didn't truly want to die. She instead decided that it should be Thomas who should be killed. Ashlee then heard Thomas making his way to her room. He made his approach to her room very obvious. He was shouting and banging his way through the house. When he got to Ashlee's door, he began banging and banging. Little did he know what was waiting for him on the other side. In one final blow, the door swung open, and with one pull of the trigger, he was met with shotgun shells. Ashlee pulled the trigger, spraying a 12-gauge slug towards his face, injuring his neck and causing him to fly backwards into the hallway beyond Ashlee's door. Ashlee then followed him out. Thomas was bleeding profusely, spraying across the doorway and hallway. Ashlee then stood over Thomas, still holding the shotgun. She then placed the shotgun nozzle into his temple, and sure enough, she pulled the trigger a final time. Brain matter was scattered across the hallways, bringing to life her deepest desires expressed to Ryan the day before. But the ordeal did not end there. According to the three younger girls, Jennifer immediately ran towards the direction of the gunshots. As she made her way through the house, she was horrified by what had just happened. According to Ashlee, she was distraught and she sought comfort from her mother. But Ashlee claims that instead of supporting her daughter, she tended to Thomas. And when she realized he was dead, Jennifer reached for a hunting knife and turned on her daughter. The three young girls watched as Jennifer and Ashlee battled over possession of a knife. Ultimately, Ashlee won, and what she did next is part of the reason why this case divided the nation. Ashlee turned the knife on her own mother. She began stabbing her over and over and over again. Evidence suggests that Ashlee lost all control in a rage-driven frenzy. She slammed the knife into her mother with so much force that she fractured her bones. There were at least 35 stab wounds across her body. Even when the fatal blows were dealt, evidence suggests that she continued to stab her mother. In the end, Jennifer was described as being unrecognizable. The evidence strongly suggests that Thomas was a terrible person, and Jennifer allowed her daughter to be a victim of his horrific attacks. Ashlee then threw the blood-stained knife wrapped in her mother's hair to the floor. Then she rounded up her little sisters and placed them in one of the bedrooms. She gave them fresh juice and food to last for hours. She wanted to make sure that they were safe before she departed. She then took a shower and fled to her friend's house a mile down the road. She stayed there briefly before jumping into her boyfriend Ryan's pickup truck and heading to Tennessee. The idea was to flee and live with a distant aunt. But the cartons of fresh orange juice and a supply of food left for the sisters would not last very long, and it wouldn't take long for the girls to understand the extent of what had become of their father and their stepmother. On the 8th of March 2015, the very next day, one of the sisters started making 911 calls. The girl would wait for the operator to speak, but then immediately put the phone down. The girls were scared that Ashlee was still in the house and that she would hear them calling the police. Normally, 911 dispatchers would try and track down the location of a recurring 911 call. However, it took longer than usual as the telephone signal in the rural area where the girls lived was not great. But later that day, the eldest daughter had the courage to call the operators again, and this time she stayed on the line. The girl told the operator that her stepmother and father had been killed, and that the crime scene was horrifically gruesome. With this, a police investigation commenced. The police understood that there had been 3 children in the house, there had been a shooting, and that the shooter may have been inside. With this information, a team of armed officers eventually rushed the house, and what they saw could only be described as a mess. One of the officers said that there was blood everywhere, and that there was brain matter scattered across the upstairs. A second police officer, named Captain Hu, mentioned that the crime scene made it clear that the attack was undertaken with extreme rage. As the police searched the house, they found the 3 sisters hiding out in one of the rooms. When they were questioned, they told the police officers that there were 2 gunshots and that a fight broke out between Jennifer and Ashlee, and that Ashlee had won and then ran away. From this moment, Ashlee became their prime suspect. The police soon learned that Ashlee and Ryan had driven away in a truck, and it didn't take long for the investigators to track them down. Their journey ended in Indiana, where the police apprehended them both. They were then taken to the police station where they were questioned, and 2 things became very clear. 1. There was more to this crime than a simple parent killing to run away with a lover. There was a history of horrific trauma that Ashlee had suffered. And second, Ryan had nothing to do with the murders. When the police questioned Ashlee, she claimed that they had it all wrong. In a surprising twist, Ashlee immediately denied any involvement and claimed it was her mother who had shot her stepfather in response to his attacks. Ashlee told investigators that she ran upstairs to find her mother standing over her stepfather's body with a shotgun in her hands. She claimed her mother began yelling, blaming her for the fight. From that moment, Ashlee said it became a fight for survival against her own mother. However, this theory wasn't corroborated by her sisters. The police discovered her escape plan, along with her messages to her boyfriend Ryan, saying how she wanted to blow Thomas's brains out. With this, the police pressed Ashlee further, and eventually she crumbled. However, at first, she explained that she had gotten the gun not to use on Thomas, but instead herself. Unfortunately for Ashlee, this theory was not believed. Ashlee was initially charged with 2 counts of first-degree intentional homicide and 3 counts of false imprisonment for trying to lock up her sisters, and the trial would soon begin. In preparation for court, Ashlee wrote to the judge stating that even though she had orphaned her sisters, they were better off and safer now their father was dead. To many, this was seen as an audacious message considering the position she was in and the one she had left her petrified sisters in. Ultimately, it made her appear to many as remorseless. As Ashlee was a day over 16 at the time of the crime, she was to be trialed as an adult. During the initial hearing, Ashlee pleaded not guilty to first-degree intentional murder. This was on the grounds that it was not premeditated and that she had significant mental health mitigating factors, and she denied the charges by way of insanity. With this, 2 expert doctors, one from the defense and one from the prosecution, examined Ashlee to better understand the validity of these claims. Both doctors diagnosed her with PTSD and major depressive disorder due to years of trauma. However, both concluded that her not guilty by insanity pleas were unsupported, that she had the mental capacity to understand that her actions were wrong, and that she could abide by the law at the time of these offences. Initially, the prosecution was seeking a 40-year sentence for first-degree murder. However, the prosecution reduced the charges and offered a plea deal of second-degree intentional murder. On the 11th of March 2016, Ashlee appeared in county court and accepted the plea deal. On the 10th of June 2016, the sentencing hearing commenced. The court heard statements from victims and arguments from both sides. According to court reports, Thomas's 2 eldest daughters described their father as nice, awesome, kind, cool, loving, and funny. And they said this despite making earlier statements to the police to the contrary, claiming that their father could be extremely violent. The state requested a minimum term of 20 years and maximum extended supervision. They cited the violent nature of the murders, Ashlee's lack of remorse, her conflicting accounts, and her behaviour that failed to protect her siblings. The prosecutor acknowledged her trauma, but emphasised that murder was not an acceptable response. But the defence highlighted Ashlee's young age, the horrors inflicted upon her by multiple men, the lack of protection from her mother, the lack of any criminal record, and her history of mental illness. The defence argued that the provocation pushed her close to insanity, and they recommended an 8-year sentence. With this, the judge considered her age, her potential for rehabilitation, and the lack of prior offences. The judge also said that they did not believe she posed a risk to kill again. Ultimately, the judge saw fit to sentence her to 23 years of initial confinement and then 17 years of supervision outside of prison. Since her imprisonment, Ashlee has stated that she feels happy and safe. She has also received her high school diploma. In an interview with a news reporter, she said that she is not a monster and that she never meant for the murders to ever happen. Ashlee feels like she was made to make a bad decision and that it doesn't make her a monster like the media portray her to be. In 2017, Ashlee appealed for the conviction of 2 counts of second-degree intentional homicide and their sentencing, but they were both denied in 2019. Whilst incarcerated, she has since started a relationship with another person outside of prison, and this person keeps her website running. In one post in January of 2020, she wrote, "I'm not in prison because I'm a dumb criminal. I'm here because I had a bad day." Some have found this statement to be rather disturbing. The public's opinion on this case is extremely divided. Many have sympathy for Ashlee due to the traumatic environment in which she was raised. They argue that these circumstances significantly contributed to her actions and that the environment that she was raised in was not her fault. However, others emphasize the severity of her crimes and believe that the sentencing is justified, with people asking the question, would you want a woman like Ashlee walking the streets, living next door to those people you care about?